Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I need to make a batch of rose geranium vanilla skin cream, which is my newer skin cream recipe and a little bit different than the one I made a couple years ago. I have a video on, but I also thought it would be a good time to go ahead and reshoot that video because the lighting in that one was much more dark. And this way you can see better, and I wanted to go into some more detail and also show you how I'm doing it that's a little bit different in the way I blend it. So this is actually much easier, and if you're interested in my other recipe, this just the main differences are the essential oils I used in that one, and that one is my personal favorite, and you can check it out right here. But I'm also using some new flowers in my infused oil, so we'll talk about that. I also wanted to say, as far as the older recipe, one thing you're going to want to think about when you're selecting the essential oils, you want to pick things that are good for your skin, but consider your own personal skin. For some people, my old recipe, the frankincense, grapefruit, vanilla, ylang ylang, may not be the best because of the grapefruit in it. If you have very sensitive skin, especially sensitive to burning, citrus oils can actually make your skin more susceptible to burning. So if you're very, very fair, very sensitive to the sun, I recommend avoiding any of the citrus oils. And I don't recall if I said that in that particular video. But if you like frankincense and ylang ylang, you could still do frankincense, ylang ylang, and then the vanilla and just leave out the grapefruit. But I'm not having any citrus oils in these ones. So rose and geranium are very, very good for the skin. And the vanilla essential oil I use just because it just kind of mellows out the strong floral scent, and I just think it makes an overall nicer scent all the way around. So I also use that blend in one of my soap recipes. But anyway, let's get busy and I'll show you what I need to do first. All right, well, the first thing I need to do today is that I'm making a decent sized batch because I always am going to do that since I make these to put up on my store. They're pretty good sellers. So I don't have enough of my pre-strained infused oil to make this size batch. So I need to strain out the next batch that is ready, which I did back in February. Now I could have strained this out sooner. I just don't bother straining it out until I actually need it. Now when you make your infused oils, it's best to let them infuse, especially I just think you can do a heated method, which is going to speed it up. I just say room temperature for 2 months. But if you need it quicker, then yes, do it. You can do it in the sun. I just always worry about the sun degrading some of the nutrients that are in the herbs. But that's totally up to you. But especially if you're going to do it in the sun, I recommend you go with an oil that can handle high heat, such as avocado oil or grapeseed oil. These are going to be your better choices than olive oil. But if you're going to do a cold infusion where you just let it sit in a dark place for a couple months, you should be able to do okay with olive oil if you prefer that for your skin. So anyway, I do have a video on how I make my infused oil. I'll go ahead and link to it right up here. I don't think in that particular one I was adding the lavender flowers to it yet. So this is actually a blend of calendula flowers, viola flowers. I often call them pansies. Pansies is actually more a reference to a certain type of viola, but they're all violas in there because they're all different types. And rose petals and marshmallow leaves. So let me list that off again and make sure I got it all. So marshmallow leaves, calendula, rose petals, violas, and lavender. I use equal amounts of each is how I do it. But you can, if you're going to make your infused oil, use whatever flowers and herbs that you have that you know are really good for your skin, and use your own ratios. I don't personally think it's that big a deal. It's going to be dependent on you. So this is my own recipe. So if you're wanting to make this, this is again, this is for personal use. And so we're going to let that sit. I've got my mesh strainer here over. I don't need a measuring cup this big for this, but my 4-cup one is actually being used right now for something else, such as soap making. Now, something you can do, what I was doing for a long time with the herbs, the expended herbs, was I was just burning them. I think that's the best way. You don't really want to compost them because they're pretty full of oil. But they will burn up really easy. However, somebody gave me an idea. And listen, they'll get pretty crunchy. You know they're ready then. I tried adding these to a stir fry. I mean, you know, it's an edible oil and they're all edible flowers, so why not? And it was interesting. The lavender in there now, though, is not always crazy about the taste of lavender flowers in food. But if you like that's an option. Before adding the lavender, the rose, the calendula, and the viola flowers and the marshmallows, a very, very mild flavor that you can just throw it into stir fries for color and maybe get a little extra nutrition, and then you don't really need to add much oil to your stir fry because it's already in your flowers. So anyway, I'm going to let that sit and drain some more, and I'll just pour out what I need when I need it, but I'll let that sit mostly for quite a long time to get as much of that oil draining out as possible. So what I'm going to do next is, using my digital scales, this is the easy way to do it, I put my pan on there that I'm going to be melting the ingredients together in, and then I turn it on because then it's going to be calibrated to the weight of the pan. So for the batch I'm making, I'm going to be working in 4 and 8 ounce increments. If you're wanting to make a smaller batch, just decrease that by 1/4. So think of it in parts. So I'll be using 1 part beeswax, 1 part shea butter, 2 parts of my infused oil, and then 2 parts of the unrefined coconut oil. When it comes to coconut oil, I prefer for the skin creams and the lip balms using the unrefined rather than the refined. And so 2 parts, 2 parts, 1 part, and then 1 part of the shea butter. But I'll be weighing this out in ounces, so my 2 parts are going to be 8 ounces. So I'm going to need a total of 8 ounces of my infused oil. So I'm going to pour that in there. I like to put the infused oil in first because it's the most liquidy thing that I have. So I like having it in there first. And then I'm just going to watch that scales. And for time's sake, I'm going to set that aside. I will still get all the oil out of there I can. But for the sake of this video, let's speed up the time a little bit, and I'm just going to pour some of this in here until I get up to 8 ounces. This is going to have bits and pieces of herbs in it. And so if you like it, say if you buy my skin cream, you might find every now and then find little pieces of herbs. That's all it is, and it's not going to hurt you. But if you want it more clear than that, I recommend pouring it through a cloth. Just a regular piece of cotton, or you can get some cheesecloth. I just pour it through the strainer. I'm not worried about the pieces in there. Now that I have my 8 ounces of my infused oil, the next thing I'm going to add is 8 ounces of my coconut oil. And that's why I like doing this way. It's the easiest. So what you can do, you can either add these numbers up as you go, or you can simply clear this out, zero it back, recalibrate it. So now it's back to 0. So now I need to get it up to 8 again. So a total of 8 ounces of the coconut oil. And I just pulled this out, so it's pretty hard. It hasn't been very, very warm around here lately, so it's not as soft as it could be. I find that the refined oil tends to be harder, while the unrefined tends to be a little bit softer. And I'm just using the Kirkland's. I think that they actually have these Costco. You can find this at Costco. It's actually the best price I've seen anywhere yet on unrefined coconut oil, organic coconut oil. Okay, there we go. 8 ounces. It's actually 8.04, but that's such a small amount. And then I just take the excess coconut oil and rub it into my skin. My hands have been very dry and cracking lately from all the gardening, so this is a good day to make skin cream. Okay, so now I'm going to zero it out again. And what I have here is basically, it's like a loaf of shea butter. And so I'm going to be cutting off pieces and putting it in the pan until I measure out another 4 ounces. So 4 ounces of the shea butter. This is for filling, this will fill 6 4-ounce containers. Just throw in these pieces that broke off. This is a brand new package I just opened up. And shea butter on its own, I know Shadell likes to just take shea butter and just whip it up, and then she just uses that as is. I like having all these other ingredients because of all the many good things that are in them. And I'm not personally crazy about the smell of shea butter, and that's why one of the reasons why I like using the essential oils. But you can try it and see what you think. I'll link below to the shea butter and to the beeswax. They're actually both the same brand. And the thing I like about this particular brand is that you can get this on the Subscribe and Save on Amazon and then save yourself another 15%. So I love Subscribe and Save for that. So there's the 4 ounces. So the last thing I need to add is the beeswax. So let's clear that out again. A lot of times I don't clear it out. I just keep adding. So when I do the oil, it's 8 ounces. So then when I add the coconut oil, it's I know it's going to equal 16 and so on and so forth. But it might be easiest, so you don't have to do math. It might be easiest just to clear it out each time. So anyway, 4 ounces of the beeswax. And it's easiest, you can get the hard pieces of beeswax, but they are hard to cut. It's so much easier to work with pieces like this. So just pour that in there. Make sure you be careful. The beeswax is one thing you definitely don't want to get too much of, or it'll make it too heavy. The beeswax just helps it, not only is it good for your skin, it's just going to help give it a thicker consistency, and thus making it easier to use all the way around. Especially if you have really dry skin. My skin and hair tend to be on the drier side, and so I really always has. So I really like, I came up with this recipe on my own to suit my skin, and knowing what I know about skin and health, I would think that even people with oily skin, once you get away from the scrubbing hard with chemicals and using all this, the chemicals that are supposed to help with this and that, if you just go all natural, wash your face with natural homemade soap, or, whether it be your own homemade soap or some soap that somebody else makes, that's all I do for my skin. I wash with the soap. I'm 53 years old. I just wash with my homemade soap, and I use my homemade skin cream. That's all I do for my skin. Okay, and occasionally once in a great while, I'll use my own homemade clay mask, and I have a recipe on that too. I'll link to right up here. Okay, so now my ingredients are all ready to start melting together. So I'm going to put them over here on my hot plate, hooked up to solar power, and I'm going to turn the heat on low. It's best to heat it, to melt it on a low heat, because you don't want to get your ingredients too hot, because you want to keep all the nutrients and all the good things in there as preserved as possible. So the whole idea is just to melt it together gently. And so just keep your eye on it. What you can do right now as you're melting it is you can select and add your oils, the amounts that you want. So again, I'm going to be using, since I'm making rose geranium vanilla, I'm going to be using the, and I use the Now Foods. I am going to try the plant therapy someday. I've heard a lot of good stuff. In fact, I think I read an article, well, that was at the top of the list as far as best all the way around for value and quality. So I do want to try that one. But Now Foods did make the list too, and they're just one of my very favorites. So anyway, when I do this size batch, I'm going to do at least a whole capful of each one of these oils. This is a bigger capful, but I don't mind getting a little more of the vanilla in there than of the florals, because it can get kind of strong. If you're doing a smaller batch, like 1/4 of the size, then maybe just a couple or a few drops of each. Just sort of work with it and just kind of see what you come up with as far as scent. It's going to be entirely up to you. Okay, so here I go. I'm just gonna, I take the little dropper thing out because I usually, when I'm doing stuff, I'm usually working in capfuls anyway. So 1 capful of the rose. This is Rose Absolute. It's actually pretty strong, even though it's not 100% rose. What it means is it's a blend. It's all natural. It's all natural oils, but it's a blend, because if you were to go pure rose oil, you would probably only need a few drops of that. So if that's what you have, just a few drops in something like this would probably be plenty, because it's very expensive and it's going to be very strong. Where this is strong just as it is, being that it's a blend. And then the geranium is 100% geranium. So 1 capful of that. And I do the same with the other ones. When I'm making the frankincense, grapefruit, ylang ylang, I put a whole capful of each for a batch this size. Sometimes I'll put in a little bit more. And then a capful of the vanilla. So I don't have exact measurements as far as teaspoons and stuff. I believe the cap this size is probably about a 1/2 teaspoon. And then I'm thinking this size cap is probably a whole teaspoon. Okay, so I'm going to let that gently melt together, and I'll be back when it's ready to put in my containers. Something you might want to do to help speed up the process, because this can take a while for it to melt when you've got it on a pretty low heat, is to keep coming back and stirring it. That's really going to help the beeswax to melt a little bit faster, because if you leave it, what tends to happen when it's at a real low heat is the beeswax, it will start to melt, and then it will float to the top where it's cooler, and then it will just sit there and it will solidify again. So make sure to keep coming back and stirring it, and that will help speed it up and then get your skin cream ready to pour. All right, well, I got to get busy, and I can't wait for Mr. Rain to stop hammering the roof. I keep pausing, but I'm not getting anywhere. So you got to understand, we have to get this roof done, and we keep trying to work between the rain, or he keeps trying to work between the rain. Anyway, hopefully you can hear me just fine, and it's not too much of a distraction. Anyway, I wanted to show you before I forget later, because I probably will, using your snap lock containers like this. I'll go ahead and link to a set at least similar to what I had before. I don't think this very set is available on Amazon anymore. I love these things. I use them for so many things, and I love storing especially food stuff. But when you're talking about the shea butter, it's usually in a loaf. Instead of trying to put it back in that bag or even in a Ziploc bag, it's easiest to store it in something like this, and then you can just cut out what you need as you need it. Especially that, because of the shape that it's in. So now I've just turned off the heat. My skin cream is ready to pour, and again, keeping that heat really low is important. And so then what I like to do is I like to put my containers that I've already got the bottoms of them labeled with the ingredients, and the lids labeled with the name of it. And then I try to get them as flat as possible, but I also like to put them on a towel because I always tend to spill. Now, what you could do, and I just now thought of this because I tend to do this with other things, I don't know why I didn't think of it for the skin cream, is melt it in a measuring cup, like a big thick glass Pyrex measuring cup. That will make it easier to pour. But anyway, what I do with the pan is I just pour it, I hold it over one container while I'm pouring it in another, because the first few are the ones that are the hardest to fill. Of course, if you're only doing one container or just making a little bit, you may not have to deal with all this. But anyway, I'm just going to fill my containers up. I get them mostly full, each one. Like I said, we'll fill 6 containers total. Once you get to this point, it's a lot easier to pour it in there without spilling it. And then I'll eyeball it with the rest, and I try to I can usually get them filled clear up to the top. So I like to, since I'm selling these, I like to guarantee that my customers are getting what they're paying for, which is 4 ounces. And I get it clear up to the top, so it's pretty certain they're getting more than 4 ounces of the actual skin cream in each container. And so I'll get it right up to the edge. Just keep coming back and doing that with each one. And then don't forget to grab your silicone or rubber spatula to try to get out as much as you can. See, this is because this is at such a low heat that I melted it at. It's already trying to start solidifying. And that's another nice thing too. It's going to not solidify, but it's set up. It's going to set up a lot quicker. And, if you don't have it at too high of a heat. And on top of that, you don't want to burn your counter or anything as well. So I like to let it set up a bit before I try to put the lids on, because you're going to have, especially since I have it very full, I don't want to spill it. So yeah, that's why I do it that way. I just like to let it set up on the towel, and yeah, I did get a few drops on the towel, and that's why it's there, but I did pretty good. So that's how I make my skin cream. You just let it completely cool, and then when it's ready, just put it to use. You see the stuff on the spoon here is already set up, and I tell you what this stuff is good for. Like I say, I use it on my face, I use it on my hands, I use it on my feet. Summertime, we're all out there working in our gardens and your feet crack. What I like to do is I actually get like a 60 grit sandpaper. I have a package that's just for me, and I will cut it into forests and take that, and it takes me a long time to go through one, but this time of year, what I do is I actually sand my heels, and then I'll take my skin cream and rub that in there real good at night, and then put some socks on over it, and boy, it sure has helped my feet a lot. And same thing with my hands. So I can wear socks to bed okay, but I hate wearing gloves to bed. But anyway, that's a good idea to do with your hands when, they start getting dried and cracked. So my skin cream predominantly gets used on my face. I put it on every single morning, and a lot of times I'll put it on again at night before I go to bed. So I wash my face with my soap, I put on my skin cream, and then again, you know, at night if I feel my skin needs a little extra, put a little bit more on. The great thing about this is, okay, you've got the coconut oil. Coconut oil has a very long shelf life, and because of its antibacterial, antimicrobial, antifungal, all these properties that it has, this is going to have a long shelf life as it is, especially with the additions of your essential oils. Most of the essential oils you're going to add in there are also going to extend the shelf life. I've never had issues with my skin cream going bad. I'm actually still working on a container of skin cream I made myself probably over a year ago. It actually goes quite a long ways. Other uses for it, it makes a really great eye makeup remover and also a lip balm. So if I have my little container of skin cream there, and I'll just grab that and put that on my lips, spread it on my face or whatever. It's also very good for any other really dry areas like your elbows and your knees. And I have used it even as is, even though I still plan on making a separate, more medicated type salve. I have used this as a salve for cuts and scrapes and scratches and things like that, and it's worked very good. And so I recommend it. The calendula flowers and the lavender flowers are very healing. This is why it would work so great on things like cuts and scratches and even burns. I've used it on burns, and so I don't get burned very often, but you know, every now and then you burn yourself on something. But I don't get sunburns, by the way. I stopped sunburning when I stopped using the sunblocks from the store. It used to be, as a kid, never sunburned. I never wore sunblock. I lived in a place that in the summertime, I didn't live where I live now. I grew up in a place that got 10 inches of rain instead of 120 inches of rain a year. And we had lots of sun, and I was out in it every day in the summertime, and I would tan, I would never burn, and I never used sunscreens. When I started using sunscreens after coming here, that was when I was most likely to burn and have more problems with my skin. So I quit all that junk. Skin creams, or the sunscreens you buy in the store, are so bad for you. But coconut oil and shea butter both have natural sun protection in it. Now, I did a whole video just last summer on natural sun protection. I'll go ahead and link to it right up here. But ever since I quit all that stuff, I never have to worry about sunburns, and my skin does great. And don't forget to look into the essential oils. Remember, citrus oils. If your skin is very sensitive and you're easy to sunburn, don't add any citrus oils to your skin cream and then go out in the sun. It's going to cause even, it's going to make you more likely to burn. And I don't think the coconut oil and the shea butter, they may, though I think they will still be helpful because they still have SPF values, they may not be able to counteract your real sensitive skin and the citrus oils that are in there. I can't say that for sure, but that, just to be on the safe side, that's what I would guess. So you may want to find something else. I do have a list. I don't remember all those things because I don't need them, but I do have a list in that video I linked to up there of other things that you can use, natural things that you can use that are very good sun protectants. And that's what you're going to want to look into. And you may still be able to use that in conjunction with a skin cream, but again, just remember it'd be best for you to leave the citrus oil out. And as far as the infused oils, the infusion is going to be a really good idea. However, if you don't have herbs to infuse and you don't want to wait, just skip that. Just use the oil, whether it be olive, avocado, or grapeseed, and mix it with your shea butter and the other ingredients and try that. And then in the meantime, just make a small batch to get started with. And then while you're using that first batch, you can have a batch of oil infusing with whatever herbs you want to put in there that are going to be really good for your skin. Hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.